once was a boy called Nigel. Nigel was, in most respects, a normal boy who enjoyed doing normal things like running around and playing sport and playing with his friends. I say in most respects because when Nigel wasn't running around and playing with his friends, he was writing stories. You see, Nigel was a story writer. It was his favourite hobby. And although he only got average grades for most subjects in school, he always got an A in English. Nigel had an amazing imagination, and all of his teachers believed that one day he would become a famous writer. Now, like many people who write, Nigel had a special place that he'd like to visit whenever he was searching for inspiration to write his stories. Nigel's place of inspiration was on a lovely secluded beach not far from his home. He was fortunate enough to live in a house that lies right next to a large forest located right by the ocean. One day, not long after Nigel and his family had moved into the house, Nigel went out exploring in the forest and surrounding areas. It was then that he stumbled on an amazing beach that nobody else seemed to know about. So he claimed it for himself as his own little paradise and place of great inspiration. Whenever he could, he would take a walk down the forest path from his home and past the hidden lagoon, which has crystal clear waters, perfect for swimming on a hot day. Eventually, he would reach a fork in the path. There were two paths at the fork. One was a wide, well-trodden, well-used path. The other was very narrow, almost invisible, and hardly ever used. In fact, if you didn't already know about it, you would probably walk right past it without ever knowing it was there. Nigel would always follow the narrow path, which quickly began to fade as it reached some vine trees. From there, the path narrowed even more, and wound its way through the undergrowth as the ground began to descend on a downward slope. The vine trees led into a forest of palm trees, and soon the little path winding through the undergrowth emerged on an amazing paradise beach. The beach was the most remarkable and striking beach you could ever imagine. Pure white sand, lined with palm trees, and a deep turquoise ocean stretched out as far as the eyes could see, in both directions. The sun, in the cloudless sky, warmed the sand so it was most pleasant to walk on with no shoes. Quite why no one seemed to know about this beach remained a mystery, but Nigel was not complaining. It was more than he could wish for to have such an extraordinary place all to himself. The beach was Nigel's special story writing place. He went there whenever he was seeking inspiration to write his stories or just wanted to be left alone. He never told his friends about the beach because he knew they would not see it the same way he did. He knew they would bring noise and mischief to the beach, and that's not what he wanted when he was there. You see, Nigel had discovered that whenever he was at this beach, great ideas and inspiration would always come to him in abundance, and that was what helped him to write his stories. Nigel wandered onto the beach and made his way over to his favourite place to sit. It was beneath a large palm tree, whose branches formed a shady canopy over the area he would sit. He plopped down on the sand, pulled off his shoes and socks, and got himself nice and comfortable by leaning back against the tree. His routine was always the same. With notepad and pen in hand, he would just sit there for a while, listening to the sounds of the ocean waves breaking on the beach, in a sort of meditation, allowing inspiration to come and find him. Then, after a short wait, an idea would always come to him, and he would start scribbling it down onto his notepad. However, on this day, and after waiting quite a while, Nigel found that inspiration was not coming to him. He realised he was a bit more tired than usual. The warm sunshine was making him feel quite drowsy, and he wondered if that was the reason for not feeling inspired. Just then, he noticed something in the corner of his eye. He looked down the beach to the right, and in the very far distance, through the heat shimmer of the hot sand, he saw a tiny figure approaching. Nigel sat up further and looked carefully. It was difficult to see exactly what it was at first, because the heat shimmering off the sand was causing the figure to distort. But as the distant figure got closer and larger, Nigel realised that what he was seeing was a horse.